introduce myself again. My name is Liz, and this is Brandon. And this is about how Brandon got his driver's license, his story of a journey to independence and success and accommodation.
Okay, so I'm going to click next.
Yeah. Okay. So for us, it really started with Brandon's motivation, right, Brandon? You're the one who told me you wanted to drive. You can say it. Yes, don't be mean.
Yes.
And because Eric, your older brother, got his driver's license, right? And a truck. Is that right? Okay.
It is right.
Yeah. So with this we knew we were climbing a mountain. But for us it was not a summer mountain, it was a cold mountain, and it was hard. Um it's hard to do without help. So Brandon needed help, we knew it. And he needed a lot of tools, and someone like Brandon who has a speech disability needs a strong advocate. You can't do it without someone by your side and helping you with to assist you with those things that you're not as good at, like speaking, right, Brandon?
I have good do at speaking.
Yeah, you have good speaking when you talk, and then sometimes you need me to talk.
Good at speaking.
Yes. And sometimes you need me to talk for you or write emails for you, right? Sometimes.
Sometimes I write email.
Yeah. So, you can go to the next slide.
1 second. How's that?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so when you decide to go forward with this, you're gonna get a lot of opinions from other people. You know, we were really excited. I guess I was nervous at first, and my husband was, just like any other child who is gonna drive. You're nervous about them getting hurt or anything like that. But uh, after you start practicing and after you get um, familiar that your son or daughter or your loved one can drive, you're starting to think that other people are going to feel like that too, but that's not necessarily how it goes. So friends and relatives and even other people you think might be advocates in the community, um, we're negative sometimes about our paths and goals. So it was a lonely path up the mountain for Brandon and I. But we kept going, and we hope we've paved the way for some of you to get the similar accommodations that were so hard for us to get. And that you'll get less resistance and you'll have some contacts to do that. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so some of the signs of readiness in someone is their engagement in learning. There's a lot to learn for the written test. If they definitely keep going for it, keep asking about, if they want to study because they want to meet this goal, chances are they're ready, their ability to remember and indicate that they remember. That was a difficult one for us because Brandon was not good at indicating that he remembered in front of other people or the way that they wanted him to indicate. Someone who's ready takes safety seriously in other situations. Just kind of knows not to, do dangerous things. That's a sign of readiness. Being able to control emotions. Brandon was, I would say, on the edge of being really in control of his emotions. There'd be once in a while where I thought, I don't know if Brandon's gonna like get really mad because, something happened on the road. But Brandon exhibited good self-control, and that told me too that if he got pulled over or something very serious happened, that he could maintain himself, and that was important for his readiness. Ability to accept correction and adapt to new things. People get in habits, and it's a good thing when someone starts driving that it's like their first time, so they're learning it for the first time. You don't have to correct a habit necessarily. So hopefully you can correct that person right away, and then they will learn to do it well. So the thing with people with autism, I think they're excellent drivers just in general. They're definitely rule followers. They take everything very, sometimes, very literal, the speed limits and things like that. So, um, I want to stop right here and ask, does anyone have any questions about signs of readiness?
I think that this is an important slide for anyone that is thinking about driving, because people become ready at different ages, not just because at age 16 that's the law, that's when you can go. Where I see some people that still need to work on their ability to control emotions and that safety, noticing being safe in other situations. That's a really, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I will just go one step further to say, that I want to caveat this with Brandon has not driven. He's driven on his own one time, and he was following me. But he has chosen not to drive on his own because he wasn't ready yet for the social aspect of driving. So that's another readiness that sometimes, we don't think about is the person socially ready to enter the community by themselves? And that's a whole nother, discussion, because that's a whole nother set of skills uh, to be able to go in the store and buy something on your own, or especially when you have a speech disability, to be safe enough to ask for help, or so that's another situation that you have to consider. And with Brandon, we're just not quite ready for that. We started working toward another goal, and really Brandon told me that getting the driver's license was a goal of his. He's really happy he did it, but he's just he decided to go toward another goal, and we're not going toward, being independent out in the community yet. So that'll be another step that we have to do. So, and I've got the little success pictures there
Yeah.
because that is a picture of our journey. You can go to the next slide.
Okay. Did anyone else have anything before? Because I piped in.
That's our journey. That's our success journey on most things.
Yeah.
We go 5 steps forward and 8 backwards. It's
Yeah.
okay.
All right, I'm going to go next.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. So I wanted to go into the accommodations that failed. So when we started taking the test, they treated us like every other person with maybe just a mild issue, or I don't know, maybe they were having English as their second language or something, the more common accommodations. So they decided they were going to read the test to Brandon. The first one was the headphones. And then the next one was the reading the test. And then the next one after that was the same person giving the test. So I'll go with the first one, the headphones. We asked for headphones so that Brandon could hear the questions and not have to read them. We thought maybe that was going to help, having it 2 different ways. Brandon can read. He started reading at 13, but having the headphones for, the proper dictation of the sentence, the pausing with the commas and things that Brandon doesn't do often, that kind of helps if it's read to him. So the headphones were off and I didn't know it. But when we did it with headphones again, it just didn't work. There was too much stimulus of listening to it and reading it, picture. That one was not effective. Brandon has an expressive, receptive speech disorder and auditory processing issues. So the next thing they decided was take Brandon in a back room and read the test to him. So because Brandon has auditory processing issues, it made it hard because the tests had the hard vocabulary. I believe they said the questions were written at like a high school level. So with a lot of disabled people, they don't read at a high school level. They don't have the vocabulary, advanced vocabulary, or understand inferences and advanced language skills like that. So that was not effective. And one time someone read the test to him without even giving him the test to read in front of himself. They just gave him multiple choice, and I was pretty angry about that one, I'll say. Because I definitely believe you will have to follow along if it's read to you. The same person giving the multiple oral tests. This was actually good accommodation, and the woman that we had was really nice. But after about 3 times, the DOL in Lakewood decided they wanted other people to practice doing this, so the same person couldn't do it every time. And that kind of broke down the whole effort. And so Lakewood's about an hour away for us, so I wasn't too happy about that, and that wasn't going to work. So So those are those are the accommodations that you'll get very easily from DOL, Department of Licensing, that they give everyone else, but did not work for us. You can go to the next slide.
So Michelle is asking why Lakewood, what do they offer the same thing in Kitsap County?
Mm. So, I don't think it's the right answer. I don't know the exact law on it, but they send everyone who needs an accommodation to Lakewood, I believe. And
Katie has headphones at Paulsbo.
oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but she had headphones at Paulsbo.
Okay. You can do the headphones almost anywhere, I think. They were toward the end of when Brandon got his license. They were saying that the only places were going to be the driver's ed schools and Lakewood for kids at count or for around here, anywhere around here. And the driver's ed schools are kind of another story. Yeah, I'll touch on that. I don't have a slide on that, but I'll touch on that real quick. They are private driver's ed schools. They do have to make accommodations that they can make, and that's kind of a gray area that I can't say I know a lot about, like what they have to do. You know, people have to put in wheelchair ramps and things like that. To accommodate people with physical disabilities. But as far as accommodating testing, they can say that it's an undue hardship for your child to take a test that is an hour long versus being with a group and it taking, um, 20 people for an hour. Like a one-on-one test for an hour is a lot more difficult for them than having 20 people in the room for an hour uh, or longer. So that's the issue with the private driver's ed offices, and I wasn't really trying to press that because the state driver's licensing offices cannot make that same excuse really, because there has to be somewhere for you to go. They're the ones who give the licenses. They're the ones who mandate the testing. So they have to behave, for lack of better words. So we can go on to the next one unless anyone has any questions about the private schools.
I mean, I've heard some good things about the private school, but then also some awful things. It also depends on who you get that day. But yeah, when I went back into that school, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't give a very good answer to me. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I
So
know we talked more, Malia, about about the answer I got at the school. I feel that Brandon was just outright discriminated against one time because um, when I asked for the secretary at the desk to just please tell the driving instructor just to slow down with the instructions and um, make sure he warns Brandon before there's a turn which way a little bit ahead of time so Brandon's auditory processing can,
Yeah.
I know, can catch up with it. So I asked for that very, very basic accommodation of being a little slower with oral instructions. And that was met with, well, you have to go to Lakewood. And I said, no, that's ridiculous. You can test him here. That's not asking something that's a hardship on you guys. And then a driver's instructor came in and he said, oh yeah, I slow down the instructions for all my students. Sometimes I even have people crying about because they're so nervous about the test. And he is actually the one who passed Brandon on the driver's test and the driving test. And Brandon only took that 2 times with them, and then he passed. So it was a bad experience that turned good, but I had to say, you know, you're discriminating, and you need to think about, you know, what you're saying, because that's not too much to ask. So
Shall I move next?
you can move next. Yes, thank you. So at one point, Brandon reached exhaustion. He took over 40 tests, and I ended up, one of my emails or my calls to DOL was that it was frustrating him and that was torturing him to make him keep using inappropriate accommodations. That's not fair. You're just going to give him one thing, you know, read it to him, read it to him, read it to him, you know. And that's not okay, because it's not working. It has to be possible. That's another thing I said to them. So at that point, we took a 4 to 5 month break from studying or talking about testing because Brandon would sometimes bring it up again, and I'd say, we're not going to talk about it. We're taking a break. It's okay. You know, right, Brandon? Remember that time we just took a break from everything?
You were all done.
Didn't want to test anymore.
Yes.
Yes. So it had been almost 4 years of trying to pass. So you can move on. Next one. Okay, phrases to use when requesting an accommodation. So one thing is that you should say it's an appropriate accommodation that fits the academic or physical limitations of the person or their disabilities. You know, you have to explain that it has to be appropriate. It can't just be like, we're picking this accommodation because we do it for everybody this way, and that's all we have. That's not the right answer. So they have to come up with something, like I said before, that's possible. In consideration of the accommodation, the department should review written test scores and accommodations provided or not provided. In the case where you've taken a lot of tests and it's not working, you should ask them to review that and review the accommodations taken. And they can do data studies like that. They told me that they could look at all Brandon's past scores, including the scores on.
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, I was just testing to make sure that people could get in because I had a friend was trying. I'm listening, but I
Okay.
didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. So they do have access to all the scores. They have access to what questions were wrong and right. They do give you kind of a hard time getting to that stuff. You'll never get it yourself. but you can ask them to consider it in making the accommodation. They did give me a little information about Brandon's scores, and they said, and the lady, I believe Angela Berg, said Brandon was showing signs of testing exhaustion. So Brandon's test scores started to plummet after a certain time period because he was just done, you know. He was still motivated in his head, but physically and mentally, he just started going downhill. So another thing is be careful not to give too much medical information. Irrelevant information is subject to scrutiny of its effect on the driver's ability. So they can always scrutinize what you give them. You know, if you say that they had seizures when they were a baby, then all of a sudden it's, you know, they could have happened. They think they might have happened yesterday and you got to go get checked out. So you don't need to give them so much information, only enough information to communicate the need for an appropriate accommodation. So you can show them IEPs or that show like reading level is helpful, because if you're asking for the reading level to be at a lower level, some kind of assessment on the academics is helpful. Doesn't have to be medical, but just enough to get the accommodation that you need. The next slide, please. Okay. So I wrote a lot of emails to DOL, and in one of them, I said, hey, this is
Well,
the,
we have this break from the dog. Do you want to answer this now or later? Is there a fee for testing? So you took the test 40 times. Did you have to pay a fee every time?
yes, we did pay a fee every time. So I think some of those were like 2 for 1 at the driving school. I don't know that it was, I think it was like $35 for 2 tests, maybe the first time at the driving school, and then it was every test was 35 or something. I can't exactly remember all the fees, but that is one accommodation that, and it's more of a mercy accommodation, right? Because if you provide the wrong or a not appropriate accommodation so many times, that's the department's fault. I mean, eventually, if you weren't given a proper accommodation, you could go to a hearing before the DOL and argue for your fees back. So that's one thing you could ask for is, you know, less of a fee or no more fees. They did discuss that in Brandon's case, but we were pretty far along. At the time Brandon passed, we were pretty far along when they started discussing fees. So hope that answers your question. So so the law, like I said, I wrote DOL several times. There was a really nice man named Larry, happened to be a blind man who was in charge of the ADA compliance at DOL, and he was a good advocate. Um, he doubted whether Brandon could drive, and that's okay. We understand people doubt, right? They don't know us. Um, one of my emails to him said, "Hey, this is Brandon. This is my second request for an appropriate accommodation. And then I kind of played hardball with them. And at that point, I asked to waive the driver's test, the written driver's test. And honestly, I think I would have kept going for that if they didn't give him anything else appropriate. And I probably would have been in a administrative hearing about this at some point. But I wrote at the bottom of my email, I put this quote from the law. And I don't know if this is I think this is a Supreme Court case, but the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business is a common right which he has under his right to enjoy life and liberty and to acquire and possess property and to pursue happiness and safety. It includes the right to do so using the ordinary and usual conveyances of the day. This right is not a mere privilege which a city will permit or prohibit at will. Isn't that cool? Thompson versus Smith. So what this is saying is that a person like Brandon has the right to go out and make purchases. He has a right to use the roads, which are built with public monies, and the ordinary and usual conveyances, which is cars, right? This is really strong, but the thing is about our rights is that the Constitution doesn't give us rights, but it protects our rights. And saying something like this kind of wakes people up. It does no more than that, really, because if you have certain rights, you pretty much have to act on them. You have to act to claim that right. And we knew Brandon couldn't fight for himself, you know. So we were hoping to say, hey, Brandon, what if something happened to us? He has the right to go buy groceries, He shouldn't always have to call the access bus. And anyway, how hard is that to call and schedule an access bus when you have a speech disability? It's so much easier to get in your car and just go to the store and buy what you need, right? So that's it's really about educating people, because the people who protect their rights and act on them are you know usually they can debate, they have good speech. So it was just me educating them that, hey, I'm gonna start pursuing Brandon's rights if you don't give an appropriate accommodation. So, and I would bring up some ADA law, but everybody can look that up. You have a right to, an accommodation that fits your needs. So that's another law. It can't cause an undue hardship upon the business, and usually that has to do with money. But most people in these agencies, or higher up in the agencies, have an incentive to, when someone pushes it with ADA, they really don't want to look bad. So what you have to do is really think about it. What kind of accommodation do you need? And and then just start asking for it. Um, and this, and you can go on to the next slide. Okay. So with all the information I gave you all, They actually gave me over to Angela Berg, their testing and curriculum coordinator. She and her supervisor came up with a good plan for Brandon. This plan worked in only 2 tests. So the first one, actually, no, 1 test. I think he passed this right away. So Brandon, I have to tell you, Brandon knew all that stuff. Oh my goodness, he knew that driver's ed manual front to back cover. And you could tell when he passed this right away. So so the test questions were given one at a time. Multiple choice options were covered at first. Sorry, I'm trying to read them from a bigger screen here. Brandon can remove the cover when he wants to. So they covered up each answer so it wouldn't be overly stimulating. Questions will be written at the 3rd to 5th grade reading level instead of high school. Questions will be straightforward. Imagine that, right? And written in a consistent style. Images that reflect the content will be included for each question. Questions will be grouped by topic, however, that topic will not be labeled. That's really nice because that's one argument I made too. I said, hey, they jump all over the place, and you know that makes Brandon just his brain keep churning on different stuff. So that was nice of them to put the topics together. Molly at Lakewood will be trained to give the exam, and Molly is the one who gave Brandon several tests in a row. We were trying to have the same person, and he almost passed with her before, but then they wouldn't let her do it with him anymore. 1 question at a time, read it once, wait silently. If he chooses to review multiple choice options, read those and wait silently. No visible timing devices. I said I wasn't sure if that was bothering him, but it would bother me too, to know that I was being timed. It's just
Yeah,
another
are you
distraction.
timed? Is it a time test?
I believe so. So
Okay.
quiet environment. And it says, here is a sample question. This is how each question will be presented on paper. He will have a separate blank page to cover multiple choice options if he wants to. He can give the answer Seahawks or say B. So you can go to the next slide. So this is the way the questions were for him. You know what? I think I'm missing something on this. I'm missing the multiple choice. I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah.
So, what I thought was funny about this was Brandon probably wouldn't have known that. We're not really fans, but that's okay. So what everybody's common knowledge is not everybody else's, you know. That's just another thing. And then the last slide, I think, be sure this is the end. Oh no, is the people's names. Larry Watkinson is a compliance manager for AADA. And Angela Berg, curriculum and testing specialist, and Brian Jackson, assistant administrator of DOL. I don't know who the higher up ones are, but these are the ones from my email that I thought, you know, you would most likely be able to get a hold of or communicate with because they're at the level where they're dealing with customers.
Shall I close this Or does
Sure.
anyone want to look at anything before I close it? All right, I'm not seeing anyone, so I'm gonna stop the share.
Okay. And I can talk just a little bit more because I didn't go over like,
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hold on a second. So when I clicked stop sharing, it said it will end the meeting for everyone. And I don't know if that means it'll just end that you can't see the PowerPoint or it's going to end the meeting.
oh, don't worry about it then. It's okay.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I must say, like, after Brandon passed, all the ladies and people at the DOL who worked with him were really happy and cheering him, and he'd taken so many tests there. Um, they were really nice about it. I I gotta say they really did try, and I am grateful to them. You know, it takes someone though that you have to be assertive. I'm not a real big speaker and I don't like confrontation, but sometimes you have to say how you're feeling to these people. And I didn't so Brandon passed both his written and his drive test within a couple weeks of each other. I think it wasn't very long. Um, and then we went to the driver's licensing office, and that was a whole nother experience. So we got there, and they wanted Brandon to answer some oral questions like, what is your date of birth? What is your address? Have you ever had any mental or physical impairments that could affect your driving? And so that one was like a big long question. And so they presented him with some questions that we weren't prepared for when we went to get his driver's license. We thought, there might be a couple things that we have to do, but um, they wouldn't, they didn't want to let me speak for him, for one, which is another ADA violation is you can't make someone who is just about nonverbal speak if they can't. And then they were concerned with his delay in answering and what they do to us. That guy at the driver's license office. They told us you need to go get a doctor note, huh? Okay. So then these people, being the medical professionals that they are, I'm being sarcastic, decided that they were going to tell us that Brandon had to have a medical assessment before driving. And that really made me angry because we'd come a long way and we just wanted to get his driver's license. Um, so I left there pretty angry, but praying about it because, we pray a lot about these things. And right away, like I'd say, I think the next day I got a doctor appointment and the doctor was a young lady and she approved him right away. And it was so awesome. We went right back and it was like in your face. We did all this work and here we are back the next day, to get the license. So we were really overjoyed. And, despite Brandon not really driving independent now, um, Brandon doesn't have to look at another test or study anymore. And he only has to renew every, 6 years or something like that. So And whenever he decides to drive independently, whenever he's ready, he can exercise that right. And no one will question it because he's already gone through all the hoops. So, do you have any questions for me or Brandon?
I had a question. First, I just
Sure.
wanted to say, Brandon, you're amazing. That's a lot of work to do. It's a lot of hard work and persistence and resilience that you show. That's amazing. And great job, Mom, for advocating because that's hard. That's a lot of hard work. I don't even know if I would have went through all that. I'd be like, I'm walking. I mean, that's a lot.
It was hard. It was awful. Like at one point, Brandon and I were both exhausted
I
for
bet.
sure.
Can imagine. My question was back to the school. I have three
Yeah.
on the spectrum. My older daughter did the school and it was right in the middle of COVID, so it was rough, and I just attributed the roughness of that to the COVID part of it. Um,
Yeah.
and so I was just wondering, were they at all helpful? Like, I mean, besides, like, it sounds like for the
Oh,
the
are you
driving
talking about
part, the
driving
driving
school?
schools, yeah.
Oh, um, let's
I mean,
see.
because it's an event. I mean, I feel like we kind of probably gonna
It
have
was
to
really
use it.
good. It's really honestly hit or miss.
Okay, yeah.
Um, I want to say the guy who finally passed Brandon, his name was like Stu or something from uh 911 driving school. But there was another lady in Silverdale. She was I want to say like Filipino or Islander or something like that. And she was very nice. She was accommodating to Brandon. We had tests with her several times. Um, and she also um, let me see what Brandon got wrong, so I could try to assess. You know, is Brandon missing something because he doesn't know a phrase? He's misunderstanding some terms, and um, it helped a little bit that those tests were. I think they had like 4 different versions, so Brandon would actually get the same questions, um, and then I could see which ones they were. Not that we're trying to memorize questions, but some of them are really pretty goofy.
It's the way the
And
wording, yeah. Sure.
one of them is like, what would you do if you're tired before you drive? And it says the right answer is take a nap. And it's like, it's just so weird. Who takes a nap before they drive? I don't know. But just things you don't normally think of as a young adult. Um,
You said that
but
Brandon had like exam fatigue. Did you take it over 2 days when the one that he passed, or was it all in one
oh,
go?
actually, yes, it was in 2 days. I'm sorry, I totally forgot that. Yeah,
Okay,
it
I didn't know if I have a bad memory, so
it was
uh,
no, you have a good memory because I didn't even remember. It was 20 questions on one day and 20
Okay.
questions on the next day. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. They did it just how I wrote on the slide. But we did have the option to do it over 2 days.
because she said that he always started out strong, and then towards the end of the test, it would go downhill. So it was probably
Yeah,
not that he didn't know the material; it was just that.
yeah, yeah. He definitely knew his stuff. It was just really hard to get out, and that was the accommodation we needed. And honestly, if he couldn't do the testing, if he couldn't pass it that way, I might have requested if we had to go to a hearing or something, if they refused to waive the test. I might have asked for, several different drives. I mean, because demonstrating that you know all the traffic laws is, to me, just as good as writing it down. I mean, it
Probably
isn't,
more so.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean, like I said at the beginning, I passed
I
the
might have
the
asked for that.
test the first time, but I was not a great driver. The written test was not really um not really indicative of what I would be like on the road, which was, yeah, frightened and making some interesting decisions.
Yeah, Brandon actually scared me less than his older brother did. So that was nice.
Katie says they should have made the Brandon test available to people on the spectrum. So does that mean that now that they've figured this out, they can do that they can share the same test with other people?
They've actually, when they were done, they said they were excited to be able to offer the same accommodation to others. So,
Okay, at
I would
Lakewood.
think, yeah, I would think you probably have to go to Lakewood for that.
Okay.
That would be okay.
And yeah, yeah,
Well,
because it's all the same knowledge. It's just breaking it down to a more easily understandable level. It is a pretty high reading level. I saw some of the questions myself, and words like hydroplaning, nobody uses that in daily language. There's advanced vocabulary, and then just kind of the way the questions are asked are kind of strange.
well,
Like
and
they,
they're confusing for the normal people. So
Yeah,
it's
they
really
are.
confusing for these guys, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
like they're trying to trick you into failing. And it's like, yeah, it's not, they're trying to do a logic test instead of an actual a test of your knowledge.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I gave some examples of that after I saw it. And another thing with Washington is I can't remember if they said they had 250 questions. I think that's how many they have. They do a random draw of
Oh,
40.
okay.
So random 40, no particular order. But there is no guide online that has these same questions in it. In fact, I guarantee you they're all different. And I don't think they keep the same ones all the time either. I'm pretty sure they change those too. So I don't know how many you're actually getting. They have some software that generates it. So that was super frustrating to me because I'm like, how am I going to teach the breadth of vocabulary and nuances in these questions to him? I cannot. And I told them I cannot possibly teach this. You won't show them to me. There's no online guide of what to study. And they kept saying, well, the book. And I was like, Brandon knows the whole book. It's the way you're asking the questions that's not fair and, not at his level. But this is, I guess, what you need to ask for is a lower reading level. I think that was one of the keys. Just make it simpler. So any more questions?
Any questions?
Is anyone else stuck in a bureaucratic quagmire or that needs some puzzling out besides the driver's license?
I found that with the speech disability, people really think that affects a lot more than it does, and that's really really unfortunate. Um, that people kind of view it as a more physical disability than it is, and so we just need to constantly educate people that of people's abilities. I tried to enroll Brandon in a dance class and a woodworking class, and after they figured out he had a disability, um, they wouldn't call back. And I thought, well, that's not right in our community, and that's why I really wanted to come here and do this because, like Malia said, we really need this in our community. We need the advocacy. We need people speaking up um, for the abilities of these people. I mean, Brandon's been turned down for jobs just because he couldn't speak in the interview. And I got to say something good about Skookum. They hired him, and he does a great job for them. Um, but yeah, there's a definite need for the education of people of their value, and everybody Brandon's worked for has been super happy about him. Oh, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once they learn that what Brandon could do, and I hope to keep speaking out for other people too.
You mentioned that people are not writing you back, and I wonder because that has also happened to us when trying to sign up for a drama class or things. They just don't reply back, and is that their way of skirting their
I
their ADA
Yeah,
things?
they
Because
just
then they don't have to say we don't want you here. They just don't say anything at all.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
guess what you need to do is just drive everywhere and show up in person. Maybe, but it shouldn't be like that. But um,
No. Yeah, it's sad. I mean, but I won't stop advocating for Brandon, and we built a nice little building for him, and we said we'd start having people over, having activities, because in a lot of situations, um, you have to kind of engineer your own way, and we've realized that. And hopefully we can bring people in, and they can go with us on our journey.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I like what the ARC's doing. I'm glad they have their dances. I think it's cool they have birthday parties. I just wish some of the younger population would go there. There's a there's a handful of quite older people, but not a lot of people Brandon's age. It'd be nice if we could get some more there.
I didn't know
To
they were still doing it. That
I
they
thought,
changed their name to
did they?
Peninsula. Yeah, Peninsula's Alliance. They're not the ARC anymore. Um,
Oh, well, thank you for telling us that. We didn't even know.
yeah. I know that I knew a couple young people that did look forward to the dance, but then I don't know if the changes happened, and I don't know if they're still doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Brandon got a neuropsychological evaluation, and the woman who did the evaluation said that she saw a lot of young men like him. And I said, "Where are they all?" And she says, "A lot of them just stay home and play video games." And I was like, "Oh." So we're hoping to reach out to that crowd. Um,
You
get
know,
them.
tomorrow I'm meeting with the Autism Society of Washington
Yeah,
with Angela Cox, who's at Holly Ridge.
yeah,
And we're going to be talking about um, get-togethers or, or something like that.
oh,
So
nice.
does anyone have input into what I should be asking for at that? Because they were talking about coffee chats, and I mean, I just went to one for Kitsap. It was just called Kitsap Friend Fighter for Ladies, and it met at a coffee shop, and it was so loud, and you can't hear because I also have an auditory processing. It's so loud, I just can't understand what anyone is saying. So I'm wondering what we can do about that. Like we want to be together and hang out, but how can we hang out?
I know it's getting more difficult to find meeting places.
The library is kind of nice and
Finding.
quiet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they actually have a coffee shop at the Silverdale.
Oh, how is Coffee Oasis? Have you tried there?
It's fine. It didn't taste burnt to me. Yeah.
Oh,
But I haven't tried the one
the
at the
atmosphere. Is that where
oh,
you went? The Oasis? That
um
was
I've been at the Coffee Oasis in Port Orchard, and I've and the one on I don't know, it's in Bremerton. Um yeah, but this Coffee Oasis is inside the Silverdale Library.
oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just like I think it used to be a cafeteria. It's at the CK Central Kitsap High School. The library is. So
Okay.
yeah, it's not a hangout. It's not a coffee shop inside of the thing. It's like a little window you can go and get your coffee.
Yeah. Well, I'll do some more thinking on that on how there could be get-togethers. If you might be able to bring people, then we might be able to do something.
Yeah. Katie, what would bring you out if we had something?
What would you like to do?
What are you looking at me for? I don't know.
I put you on the spot. I apologize.
You can take some
Well,
time and
you
think.
didn't have to take the test at all.
Well, no, she means what would you like to do out in the community to meet people?
I don't like meeting people.
I know.
Fair.
It's okay.
I
I like
have,
to stay in
sorry.
my den
Yeah.
with my mom where I'm safe.
Yeah, valid. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I have 14-year-old twin boys, and that's very much where they're at. But I would also like to get them into some things and a little bit more social things. I think um, I know that they're still very much they need to have something to do.
So there
You
is
know,
the D&D at the libraries. I wonder if do they like gaming?
yes. But even like for meetups, like like we try to they have like one friend, and we have to have like an activity for them to do. They won't just kind of sit.
Hang out. Yeah.
talk, right, and chat.
So
Right.
awkward. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, which I kind of get, I get that too. Like I like the silent book club kind of things where you can show up and just read your book and talk to people if you don't, well, if you want to or if you don't want to. Like that's my style too. So I get the need to have a common something, right?
Yeah. But I mean, there's like knitting groups, there's hobbies, there's all kinds of things just based on your hobby, not because you have a disability.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes it is nice to meet with other folks just like us.
Yeah.
Um,
It's nice to know that there's other people out there going through what we're going through.
yeah.
Yes.
I do know that when it was the ARC under the previous leadership, they did have get-togethers at the Coffee Oasis in Bremerton. And yeah, the parents were there. They just were on the side, just hanging out on the side, letting people do what they wanted. I think there's always a game or something going on, but they haven't done that lately.
Hi, I'm just taking my camera off here.
Okay.
So
I
go
guess I'm
plug in.
gonna, if I hit stop recording,